And welcome to this week's episode of the 30-Minute Hour. It's the show where we discuss business, sports, politics, and whatever's on our mind. And this week we've got the benefit of being live and in video, looking at you and you're looking at us. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner and author of The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. Joining me, as always, is Ted Fells, the business strategist extraordinaire and all-around good guy.
And coincidentally, I have a copy of The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. And I'm really excited about reading it this time.
This time. And what a coincidence it is that he would just happen to have that book right now. That's just such a great coincidence. We're grateful for coincidences, though, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, there we go. Also joining me is Sean Summers. He is our resident sports guru.
Hello, hello. And I too, as well as looking forward to reading The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. Thank you.
Thank you. Outstanding. And I'm excited about introducing our guest to you for this week. She's the principal and CEO of Centric Business Solutions, LLC, a woman-owned consulting firm located in the Washington, D.C. metro area. The company specializes in accounting, business, and CFO consulting services, as well as IT services. And in addition to that, Gina is the founder and executive director of Reach DMV, a nonprofit organization which works to empower individuals and families experiencing domestic and relationship violence. And if that weren't enough, she runs a nonprofit organization. She speaks at conferences. She speaks at workshops. She's on national radio shows. She sits on boards. She's active in her sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated. Please join me in welcoming our guest for this week on the 30-Minute Hour, Miss Gina Young.
Hello, everyone. And I, too, have a copy. The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. So I will read my copy, second copy, this time. I won't procrastinate. But thank you for having me.
Thank you, Gina. So as I was preparing for this show and I was looking at all the things you're doing at the same time, like I got tired just looking at all of this. So the first question I want to ask you is, how do you do it all? How do you stay on track and organized and just get everything done?
It's God. It's God giving me the energy to move forward and do the things that I enjoy and the things that I love. So I'm still asking myself that question. I don't get enough sleep at night, but I get it all done.
Okay. It's interesting because I work with different clients and they always say, well, I just don't have time. I didn't have time. I don't have time. And you literally just destroyed that myth.
Yeah. It's about doing what you enjoy and finding the time to do those things.
Fine. So we all have time. It's just finding the time.
Absolutely. We have to make the time for those things that are important to us.
So it's not that some people have 48 hours in a day. We all only have 24 hours.
Absolutely. And it's how you use that time, that 24 hours, to make things happen.
So are you saying you can actually find the time to do something if it's important enough to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What a concept.
Yeah.
No, and for you watching, please don't say that I don't have time. It's all about making priorities, and I think Gina is a great example of when you prioritize and you're focused and you have a structure in place, you can do a lot of things at the same time, a lot of really good things at the same time.
Absolutely.
So let's start talking about Centric Business Solutions. What inspired you to start that?
A quick story about my childhood. My background is accounting and finance. I've been in accounting and finance most of my life. I started working as a bookkeeper, believe it or not, at the age of 12. I was blessed enough to be born into a family of entrepreneurs, and my grandfather, who is now deceased, and my uncle started a business years ago. So all the cousins worked for the business. We changed oil, we changed tires. It was an automotive business. But I was asked to come into the office and try my hand at some bookkeeping at 12 years old, mind you. Fell in love with it and decided to stay with it, and the rest is history.
That means you're really good at math then, right?
Yes, I'm good at math. Yes. So fast forward to Centric Business Solutions, worked as a CFO and a VP of Finance for a number of different companies over the years, and started doing bookkeeping and accounting and some tax prep work for some family and friends when I was still working in corporate America, and decided to start Centric out of a love for small businesses. Looking at small businesses and having owners of small businesses approach me about not knowing how to get started. What do I need to start my business? I feel that all small businesses need two things for sure when they start, and that's a good attorney and a good accountant. Oftentimes, small business owners think that their cousin or their, peewee from down the street that they grew up with has what it takes to do the accounting, and initially it may seem that that works, but when you start dealing with tax requirements and other requirements, and just being in compliance in terms of your business, whatever that business is, oftentimes you need an accountant, a professional to do the work. So started the business out of a love for those small businesses that may not have the financial resources or the human resources when they start out to actually afford a professional accounting team to come in and help them. So that was my vision. Left corporate America and jumped right into Centric, actually.
Note to self, I think I may need to fire Pee Wee from down the street
Okay.
as my accountant.
Or you may be able to find something else for Pee Wee
To do, right?
within the time.
Absolutely.
Give him another role.
Another role in it. Pee Wee been managing your books
Absolutely.
all this time, man.
And they mean well. Their intentions
Right.
intentions are honorable in most cases, but sometimes they just don't have what it takes to give you what you need as a business owner on the accounting front.
Now, I would think any business owner would be able to benefit from your services, but do you have like a target client? Like, who is your ideal client that you...
And my ideal client is the small business startup company who doesn't have any idea how to get started. They know that they enjoy making cupcakes, they're good at baking, but they don't know what else they need to move their company forward. And so that's my ideal client. We work with clients from every size standard, from a small business startup company to mid-sized company. Our largest client has about 150 employees, and so that's our sweet spot.
So are there any common mistakes that you see from an accounting and finance standpoint? Like what are some of the most common things you run across in people that you work with?
Not having a viable accounting system. They're trying to do everything on spreadsheets,
Okay.
Excel spreadsheets. Not paying attention to the requirements of their particular business structure from a tax perspective. And that's oftentimes where companies get into trouble because they don't know, okay, I'm an LLC. What does that mean? What kind of tax forms do I need to complete? When are my taxes due? The other thing I find is that when you have employees, it's very important for companies to understand the significance of paying your payroll taxes in a timely manner, what Department of Labor requires when you have employees, and oftentimes companies get into trouble, and I've actually seen companies get shut down, having to close their doors, and whether Internal Revenue or another taxing authority putting a padlock on the door because you are so far behind in paying payroll taxes. So those are typically accounting systems, not having anything in place that can really track your activity, your revenues, your expenses, and then just not paying attention to the tax side of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say this hypothetically, because I know quite a few of our listeners are in this position. I've just started Eric's Enterprise.
Yeah.
What are some simple steps I can take to get my financial house in order? What would you recommend?
Eric is trying to get some free. I just started Eric's Enterprises. What exactly should Eric do to get started?
Let's say Eric had a hypothetically
Asking for a friend. Asking for a friend.
Right.
asking for a friend who happens to be named Eric. Go ahead.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
The first thing is to make sure you have a good attorney
good
I
attorney.
always say get referrals from friends and family who you trust. And the other thing is also get referrals for a good accountant, because you want to set up a consultation with both an attorney and an accountant that comes highly recommended, so that you can ensure that from the start you're putting things in place as they should be, so that you can continue and grow your business. You have those things in place. So those are the two things. Definitely have those conversations before you get started. Because once the ball starts rolling, if your business is successful, which everyone goes into business to achieve success, make sure you don't want to wait until you're in the middle of it to get those things done. If you can help it, there are certain circumstances where you can't help it, but as soon as you can, meet with an attorney, meet with an accountant to make sure you're getting things set up properly.
One of the things I find just in some of the business owners I've worked with is they start the business because of what they call an entrepreneurial seizure,
Yeah.
where they say, you know what, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that on my own. I'm
Yeah.
good at writing. I'm good at fixing cars. I'm good at this.
Yeah.
But they don't have the understanding for accounting,
Yeah,
and they don't understand that side of the house.
yeah.
What educational resources would you recommend for someone?
You know, to be completely honest, I advise anyone who's thinking about starting their own business to talk to 3 or 4 people who've been in business for years, to talk with them about, kind of get some nuggets of wisdom from them about what are some of the pitfalls you experience. It can be someone who's in that same line of business that that person is looking to pursue, or it can be someone who they trust, or they, you know, who comes highly recommended, that has done well, but may have experienced some pitfalls along the way. I think a lot of people think, oh, entrepreneurship is, oh yeah, that's what I want. I want to set my own schedule. I want to be the boss. I don't want to answer to anyone. But entrepreneurship can be challenging. It can be daunting. It can be exhausting, and at the same time be rewarding. So you want to make sure that you are fully informed in terms of what you should expect. You know, whether you should get a paycheck, how long it will take you to get a paycheck. It may take you 6 months or a year, all the things that you need to be aware of before you step foot into that arena, because it is more than a say-so.
So we're in that tax window, April 15th
Oh.
deadline.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from some of the people that you work with? Are you seeing procrastination? Are you seeing?
Because if so,
Oh,
Got the boat,
you
right?
can give the book.
If you were seeing
yeah,
procrastination.
yeah, just in case. We always see procrastinators, okay? One of the things,
You're like, yeah,
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good
call
thing.
me,
That's right.
call Eric Twiggs. But one of the things that we're seeing this tax season, which, and I've talked to many colleagues who are in the same line of work, that we haven't seen in the past is, of course, everyone has been, has heard on the news or otherwise about tax law changes that the president
Yes.
has put in place. And I will say, I've never seen a tax season like this. Number one, a lot of taxpayers weren't sure what to expect. They didn't know what the impact would be on their personal tax situation. And it has been an emotional time. A lot of taxpayers who typically get refunds, they're finding that they owe this year for a number of different reasons. And so it's been challenging. It's been a really difficult and a really tough tax season. So procrastinators, there will always be procrastinators, but nonetheless, those people who are finding that there's some challenges, they owe money, I always advise, especially this tax season going forward, to do their tax planning, get with their tax professional, and really look at their situation. Because the likelihood is if they owe this year and they don't make any changes, or owe for 18, they don't make any changes for 19, they're going to be back in the same boat for 2019 when they file in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you can tell us about what those changes were? I mean, if I was getting money last year in refunds and now I'm doing it the same way I've been doing it, but this change has happened from the president, I mean, what's that?
Yeah.
What are those changes?
So essentially what's going on is there have been a number of credits and exemptions that the individual taxpayer, we'll talk about individuals, were privy to and were available to them in the past, and some of those have been done away with. There are a lot of limits that have been put in place. Too many for me to go down the list. And so I urge people to do their research, talk to their tax professionals, and also go to the irs.gov website, which spells everything out.
Yeah.
One of the things that, to your point, Ted, excuse me, people need to pay attention to, oftentimes when people get refunds, yay, they're excited, I got $5,000, $10,000 back. But it doesn't mean that that's the best scenario. When you get a large refund back, it typically means that you haven't done well with adjusting your exemptions or allowances through your employer. And so I urge all taxpayers to look at their exemptions. The closer you can get to zero, the better. Taxpayers also need to consider paying additional money during the course of the year if they feel that they're going to owe for 2019. And so there are a number of changes that were made, and it has just hit folks really, really hard. And so I urge all taxpayers to really get with their tax professionals or just do your research, understand what tax law changes took place. Because the changes that were put in place beginning in 2018 will be in place through 2025. And so there's no idea, that we have no idea of what is going to happen until we get another president, to be quite honest. So
Right.
we have to be really clear.
Okay. So you mentioned that, you help your clients as far as to decide, should I be an S Corp? Should I be an LLC?
Yeah.
Well, what are some basic tips? Because there's someone that's listening to us that's, hey, I want to start a business. What are the advantages of being an LLC versus an S Corp? Can you kind of shed some information on that?
Absolutely. The LLC is very popular and has been for a number of years because there is a limit to liability
Right.
from a personal standpoint.
Right.
So LLCs have been and will continue to be, in my opinion, one of the best business structures to look at. People have to understand, however, even though you set your business up as an LLC, there's some other caveats that you need to be aware of. For example, Eric, if you start an LLC and you're the sole member or the sole owner, Internal Revenue, even though you're an LLC, will tax you as a sole proprietorship.
Right.
What that means is when you file your tax return, your taxes or your activity for your business will need to be reported actually on your 1040, on your personal income
Right.
tax return.
Yes.
If there's one or more members of an LLC, benefits to that. There's still going to be a pass-through mechanism where if you have a profit in your first year of business of $100,000 and you are the sole owner, you will have to add that $100,000 profit to your 1040 as income. So those are the types of things people need to be concerned with and just be aware of. Do your research. C Corps, S Corps, they're good structures depending on what kind of business you're in. But you want to be aware of that as well, because even with this S Corp, any profits will flow through to the 1040 or the personal or individual tax return of the owners, whether there's 1, 2, 3, or 10 owners. So people just need to do their homework before they decide on the business structure, so they understand what the tax ramifications are at the end of the day.
And again, all the more reason to have someone like yourself and be using your services
Absolutely.
to really help with
Absolutely. I'm here for you. I'm here for
He
you.
said, I agree.
Absolutely, because it can be confusing. It's a lot of information and a lot of
Yes.
people don't understand how to navigate that information, so,
Right.
yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So let's shift gears a bit. You're the founder and the executive director of Reach DMV. What inspired you to start that organization?
I started the organization as a result of having experienced some domestic violence in my life. And so oftentimes when you experience something, you have a love for helping those who are experiencing the same things. And so as a result, I decided to start Reach DMV, actually to help those who are in the midst of those relationship, and domestic violence type situations, any kind of, violence within a relationship. And that has to do with children, has to do with men, women, no one is exempt from it. And so we like to provide them resources to strengthen them, even when they're in the midst of it and they need to get out. We want to provide them resources so that they can safely get out, whether it's a mother with her children, whether it's a husband or a boyfriend, because men are victims and survivors of domestic violence as well. So we are like a resource for those people who are dealing with it, so that they know where they can go to get the help they need.
Yeah, I mean, that's admirable. And it's a lot of times we go through difficult challenges and it's to help others.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we're looking for purpose, but I think we have to look inside of our own lives.
Absolutely.
And we can find that ultimate purpose.
Absolutely. And oftentimes when you've experienced something yourself,
Yes.
your passion for that is on another level, because
Yes.
you know what it feels like, you know what it looks like. And so I love it, and I work closely with my church, Sanctuary at Kingdom Square. Anthony Macklin, pastor. We work closely together on a number of different fronts to empower those victims and survivors.
That's one thing about folks, boy. They'll put a plug in for their church and they pastor. There you go. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Shout out to
Absolutely.
Pastor Mac.
That's right. That's right.
And I know that you do some other things as far as with your services to your church, that you offer some services to less fortunate
Yes,
people.
yes. Several churches in the DMV once a year has something called Warm Nights, and it's typically in the January, February, March time frame, when it's the coldest in most cases for those folks who are homeless. And so what happens is the churches they combine forces, and for 1 week, each one of the churches will take 1 week each and house a certain number of homeless individuals. And so for a number of years through my church, Centric has provided tax services to those folks who are homeless and who need tax prep done, because it is during the tax season when they are visitors and guests at the sanctuary. And so absolutely love it. Oftentimes people ask me, like, why are you doing taxes for the homeless? It doesn't mean that they don't have a job. It may mean that they can't afford rent in the area.
Right.
And we know what the rent rates are like in the DC area. So, they have income oftentimes just like we do. And so it is very rewarding. I will continue to do it, continue to provide my services at no charge, of course. And the guests that we deal with are some of the most appreciative people I've ever met before in my life. Just to have something as small as a tax return prepared for them. So thank you for asking about that. Yeah.
So what's on your horizon? I mean, you've got all these things going. 10 years from now, I mean, like, where do you see yourself?
Wow. I see myself doing much more than what we're doing now, having a greater reach. We do have clients around the country now on the accounting and the tax side. And so looking to get a larger footprint into the federal sector, the federal government, and providing similar services to the federal government, agencies within the federal government. Also, I started dabbling in real estate investment. And so would like to actually kind of move away from the day-to-day of Centric and kind of pass that along to a couple of people that work with me now and let them run the day-to-day. I'll still be in the background and know what's going on, but would like to take a step back and do some other things and just create a larger footprint.
Create a larger footprint.
Yeah.
You're creating a big one as we speak.
Sound like that foot is
Thank you.
it's a pretty big foot right now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So what about the speaking that you do? Like, what groups do you speak to?
Oh, yeah, a lot of entrepreneur groups. I speak with church groups who have entrepreneurial ministries who are looking to empower their members with exactly what we were talking about. How do I get started? I want to start my business. What things do I need? And so a couple of my clients who will remain nameless, but are on the political front, I do some things with them in terms of speaking engagements about small business concerns and that sort of thing. Same type of thing. And it's interesting, some of the clients that we deal with and we meet are clients who are just getting started and trying to figure it out. And we work with clients who've been around for 10, 15, 20 years and still trying to figure it out. How can I do things better? How can I be more efficient? And so we work with clients in every one of those areas. Because just because you've been around for 20 years, you know, there's still things to learn, still ways to improve your business, and still ways to grow your business. And so we are here for you.
Yeah. With you being very successful, what would your advice be to younger ladies who wants to do the same thing as you, especially hopefully it doesn't happen, but having to deal with guys or males who tend to overlook or look down upon females who are taking lead roles? What would your advice be to younger ladies out there?
Know your stuff. Make sure you're well learned, well read, as my grandmother used to say. I've experienced that in corporate America and in my business, where men kind of look at you a different way. But just know your stuff. You know, I never get to a point where I feel like I know it all. I'm always open to learning. And so before, again, and I will reiterate, before you start your business or look to start a business, do your research. Know what you're up against. Know who your competitors are, so that you can prepare yourself for that. And so in business, it's always, you know, about who can do it, not who can do it the best necessarily, but who can do it. Because there are a lot of us who can do what I do. And so I don't take that lightly, but I understand that there's enough of the pie to go around. And so definitely just never close yourself off from learning.
Did you have any mentors?
I did. I have a couple of mentors. One was a good friend of my mother's who started a business many years ago, and she's still doing it. Her daughters have taken over the business, but she was one of the first people I went to when I was thinking about starting my business. And also a former boss of mine, male, who was very open to allowing me to step in front. And some of the things that I do, I hear his voice in my head because I picked up so much from him, and he was just a wonderful person in letting me learn and kind of spread my wings. So mentorship is interesting and it's important, and I mentor a couple of people, and I think it's critical. It's critical kind of to pass it along, pay it forward.
You mentioned how you started with a family business and everything. There's a saying that you shouldn't do business with family or whatever. Do you agree with that at all, or what is your take on that?
Yes and no, and I agree in that my grandfather and my uncles and my family gave me an opportunity, and so I still do work for family members, but you have to make sure that those family or friends are well qualified. I can't hire you just because you're my girl, you were my line sister in college, you're my cousin. I need to know that you're capable. And it's no love lost. It doesn't mean that I love you any less, but when it comes to business, of course, relationships have fallen apart because of business, because you don't see eye to eye, or because you don't like me telling you what I need you to do in my business. So I think it can work, and I think there's situations where it's best to keep family and friends out of it. But you just have to pick and choose. You have to be wise about the decisions.
So, Pee Wee, he's on his way. He's on his way out. He knows.
Pee Wee and I,
he's
we're
watching
gonna have
the
to have a
show.
tough conversation.
Right.
It's not gonna go.
But no.
Yeah, Pee Wee. I mean, he may be able to do something else in the business. Maybe deliver
Have him deliver books.
books,
Right.
be your driver,
Right, there you
that
go.
sort of
There
thing.
you go.
But-
So you mentioned a little earlier, there are a lot of people playing in the financial services industry, and it's filled with competition.
Yeah.
So share with our listener, what is it that separates you from the others?
Good question. I'm asked that often. And I was telling a colleague of mine the other day, she owns an accounting firm, we're good friends, and one of the things that I get more joy out of than anything else is when my client comes to me, especially if it's a difficult client. Say a difficult male client, and he kind of at first dismisses me in an initial meeting. Nah, I don't need it. Then something happens. He gets a letter from internal revenue. threatening to garnish his bank accounts or levy his bank accounts, his business accounts, personal, whatever. Then he calls back and he says, you know what? Yeah, I need you to come in and help. And then I've been there for a minute, and he sees how efficient or how efficiently things are moving and processing, and then he comes back and says, you know what, you're absolutely right. I don't know what I did or how I made it this far without you. So for me, it's just the thank you, and just from clients, just hearing them say, gosh, you know what, you really made a difference, and I want you to continue to be a strategic partner with my firm. And just, you know, making my clients feel like they're the most important. I may have 100 clients, but I want client Eric Twiggs to feel like he's the only one. When he calls, I'm responsive. If he emails, I'm responsive. If I can't answer you right now, I'm responding by saying, hey, let me get back to you. I'm in a meeting. I'll get back to you in a couple of hours. So we really, and my staff is the same way. They understand the culture. And one of the important missions of our firm is to be responsive and to make each client feel like they're the most important client or the only client that we have. And so more often than not, we hear that, and it is the most rewarding thing ever.
Great. And I asked you that purposely because I just think any entrepreneur needs to be able to answer that question.
Absolutely.
And because no matter what you're doing, whether it's IT or what have you, you're going to have a lot of other people in that same space.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
and you did a great job of articulating what separates you from the pack.
Thank you.
So-
Yeah, it's important.
So how do you deal with, I would assume most of the time your clients or potential clients, when they come to you, they're at a dire position.
At a point of desperation.
Right, they're calling you, and, you know, I got this box of these documents right here that I need to bring over to you, and, you know, I need some help. I mean, is that pretty much what your situation's like usually when people
I'd say
contact?
probably, out of 100%, probably 45% of our clients come out of a sense of desperation.
Wow, almost half
Oh,
are
yeah.
desperate.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Oh, yeah. They even clients that have accounting staff, they have a full accounting staff, but they may not have been able to get beyond a certain point in terms of their technology or what's out there, what's new, what can make us better. You know, we've been using the same software for years, but we need something that's quicker, faster. You know, what can you help us with? You know, a lot of companies now are looking to companies are always looking to reduce costs without sacrificing, you know, the integrity of their service or, you know, the quality of their service. And a lot of clients are looking to reduce staff, okay? And when you reduce staff, of course, you have to think about the salaries, the payroll taxes, the benefits, the everything.
Right.
So a lot of clients come to us because they want to pay us. We're not staff. They pay us as just like any other expense, as you would pay an attorney. They retain our services. And so a lot of clients come to us because they realize that they're losing money, but we need accounting. What can you do to help us? That sort of thing. We get a lot of referrals from law firms because they work with clients who are getting set up and they know they don't have an accountant. So Gina, can you help this client out? Because they really need some help. They don't know what to do, and I can see they're going to go down a dark path or this deep
Right.
hole if you don't help them. So we get our clients from a lot of different resources, primarily by word of mouth. And so we work with clients who are at a state of desperation, about to jump off a cliff. And we get clients who are just getting started and just things are pretty stable, but they want to make it better. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. Anytime soon.
How much of
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
how much of a impact did the government shutdown have to do with
With our business, minimal.
minimum?
Minimal, yeah, because for the most part, 85 to 90% of our clients are all commercial. So they weren't impacted by the shutdown, thank goodness.
So what about the individual clients that need individual taxes done? Was there an impact to them?
It wasn't, because by the time tax season started at the end of January, the shutdown was over. And so they weren't impacted at all in terms of being able to, and we work with our clients, depending on their situation. We have a heart, so we understand that people are still trying to, and will for some time to come, try to dig out of that hole from the government shutdown, just the fallout from that. So that wasn't, we didn't have any impact, direct impact from that.
So as you're trying to kind of diversify your client portfolio, that sounded good. You like that, right?
That was good.
Diversify.
Nice.
As you're trying to diversify your client portfolio
I'm
from
impressed.
the private sector
Yeah.
into federal, state, and local, I mean, what are some of the strategies that you're looking at in order to do that?
Working with other companies to partner with companies who are already in the government space. We already have a woman-owned small business certification with Small Business Administration and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, so working those certifications as well. And so that is the primary, making connections, working with people who are already in the government, who are in positions of decision-making to guide us in the right direction. So 2019 looks like a good year to really jump all into the government sector,
So
the federal sector.
So the requirements within the government sector, as far as the services that you offer, I mean, how do they compare with the type of services that you offer to commercial? Is it the same type of services? I mean, what's the difference?
Some are the same, primarily in the government sector, it's more considered on the finance side, the financial management support. So a lot of agencies need accounts payable help. They need travel reconciliation work done. They need some payroll work done. And so some of it transfers from the private sector over to the government, very similar requirements.
And I know that you also work with nonprofit
Yes.
entities as well.
Absolutely. We
Same
work with
type.
nonprofit entities, we work with churches, different tax requirements, but all the same, they need accounting as well. We know that we live in a time where churches are no longer the mom and pop operations. Churches are big business now.
Absolutely.
And a lot of money comes into churches, so they need to be able to track their, track all their activities, their revenues, their expenses, and report on those requirements as well, so, yeah.
Okay. So what's the best way for our listeners to get a hold of you? Because now they want you as their accountant and their financial person, so.
Of course. Well, our phone number is 202-827-7444. Again, the name of the company or the firm is Centric, CENTRIC, Business Solutions. I can be reached, or we can be reached at info@centricbiz, B-I-Z, solutions, with an S on the end, .com. Again, the phone number is 202-827-7444.
All right.
So this tax grind now is, I mean, you're almost done now? I mean, what is?
We're never done.
Okay.
We're never done.
Okay.
However, the mad rush is about to hopefully slow down. So on March 15th, we had a deadline for S-Corps and partnerships. The 15th of April, we have the individual deadline and the C-Corp deadline. And then May 15th is the deadline for nonprofit organizations. So even beyond that, you still have businesses and individuals who file extensions, and so typically 6 months down the road, we'll have another rush. And so the tax business is honestly year-round. It's year-round, depending on whether a business, for example, is operating on a fiscal year, calendar year, whether extensions have been filed. So April 15th is another big deadline down, and we can breathe, and then we go from there.
So you're probably one of the few people that doesn't get really shaken up when you see a letter from IRS or a call from the IRS.
No. We talk to the IRS on behalf of our clients all the time, and, working out arrangements, and, when people are on the verge of passing out because they get a letter from Internal Revenue, oftentimes it's not as major or bad as it seems, and so we work with our clients to resolve those matters as well. So, no, we don't get rattled by correspondence from Internal Revenue.
So I've heard situations where people have talked about or discussed the IRS calling them at their homes and asking them to do something, or police are gonna come get
Yeah.
them. I mean, is there
Yeah.
any validity to that?
It is not, and there have been many news stories, local and national. There have been, there are reports on, or articles out on the Internal Revenue website. It's fraud. Typically, you can count 99.9% of the time, Internal Revenue will never call you. Number one, because they don't have your phone number. They can find out, but they don't have it. When Internal Revenue wants to get in touch with you, they will communicate by, in written form. So you'll get a letter in the mail or by certified mail or whatever it is. I've had many clients to call me in a panic because they've gotten phone calls saying, you know, there's a warrant out for your arrest because you owe taxes and you need to send us this money right now. And it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And so taxpayers are warned to ignore those calls. I've had a number of senior citizen clients to get upset, as you can imagine, you know, not knowing what to do. I've had one client that actually sent money in that went down a black hole, of course. So listeners, please ignore those calls. If you happen to answer the phone and they say that they're Internal Revenue calling, or there's a warrant out for your arrest, or the marshals are coming to get you, please do not engage. Hang up the phone immediately. If you happen to engage in a conversation, just let them know that you have legal counsel and you need their information, and I guarantee you they will hang up and not call you back.
And ignore Pee Wee's advice.
Please, yeah, so,
Now, do they send email? Does IRS send email?
No,
So
no.
only letter?
snail mail, yeah,
Okay.
for the most part. And if it's something that's really urgent, they may send a letter via certified mail or some other form, but typically they will send you a letter, and they give you ample time to respond. So let me just put out a disclaimer. If you receive a letter from Internal Revenue, please respond immediately, because letters from Internal Revenue are very time sensitive. We respond to letters on behalf of our clients, so if you have a question about it, please see a tax professional or an attorney if you don't understand what the letter is stating, so that you can address it, because if it goes beyond the time frame that they've allowed for you to respond, you know, other things can possibly happen. So you want to respond in a timely manner.
Are
Yeah.
there any other helpful tips for our listeners?
I will say, going back to the conversation about the tax law changes that are in effect for quite some time, reiterate the fact that W-2 employees, please, 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 double check your exemptions, what's also called allowances through your employer. You may have to complete a W-4 form, which gives you an opportunity to change the number of allowances that you're claiming, but make sure that number is at a level where you are sure that you will not owe going forward, owe taxes going forward. Even if it means getting a little bit less back on your check each week or every time you get paid, it's worth it. The other thing is for 1099 independent contractors, of course, you know that when you get paid, there are no taxes which have been withheld. So it's critical that you understand that you need to pay taxes along the way, so that you're not surprised when it's time to get your tax returns prepared and you wonder why you owe 20 grand as a result of a 1099 that you've received. So there are a number of resources, videos. Internal Revenue, IRS.gov has come a long way over the years. They have a wealth of information out there for the average taxpayer, for businesses, individuals. Go to that website and do a search if you need to. There's a exemption calculator, so it'll help you determine where your exemptions need to be, whether it's 0 or 1 or whatever the case is. So those calculators will help you, but utilize that website to your benefit.
Yeah, that's great advice. So we're at the part of the show where we're about to go around the horn, where everybody kind of gives their closing thought. Did you have you told us a lot, you shared a lot. Did you have any final tips you want to share with our listeners?
The only thing I want to say, given that there's been so much emotion around this tax season, is just do your homework. Even when it comes to the tax law changes, what those changes are, you can find anything if you Google. Just Google tax law changes effective 2018 to understand what has been changed. There's simple things that have been changed For example, there was for years, and I'm going to make this quick, employees could deduct unreimbursed business expenses or employer expenses. If you paid, for certain expenses, to do your job, you could deduct those. Effective 2018, those deductions are only available to self-employed individuals. So there are a number of things that you could deduct in the past that you can no longer deduct, at least while this tax law change is in effect. So just do your homework and Google. You can find a cheat sheet and information so you can be well informed.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Gina. It's been a pleasure having you
Thank
on the
you.
30-minute hour.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Sean, we're going around the horn. What's your closing thought that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
As far as what, sports or
Yeah, whatever you'd like
Sports
to discuss.
in general?
well, national championship is Monday for UVA, who defeated
Auburn.
Auburn, and Texas Tech who defeated Michigan State. They'll be playing national championship Monday at 9:20. Should be a good game. Should be a good defensive game. So not the average, I guess, person will probably enjoy the game because it's going to probably be a defensive game because both teams are great defensively. I think Texas Tech allowed probably like 35-36% from teams field goal percentage wise. So it should be a good game. So that's that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. We're looking forward to watching that national championship.
Absolutely.
Ted?
I just feel so much smarter about taxes.
Mhm.
And I think you made something that I otherwise would have thought was probably kind of a boring subject, just very, informational and enjoyable. So I'd like to thank you for that. I know that I need a professional, right? Because the way you were just rolling that stuff off, I didn't have a chance to take any notes, but definitely sound like a subject matter expert in the area. So we'd like to thank you and thank all that could, leverage your services. Please reach out to Centric Business Solutions.
Thank you.
And so, my closing thought as we go around the horn is, as I'm listening to Eugene, I'm thinking about if you go to sports and you look at people that are considered great, if you look at business and you look at people who year after year their companies have great performances, they have one thing in common. They have surrounded themselves with the right people. They have the right team in place. It's not just, you may think it's just them, but it's really not. They've surrounded themselves with the right people. And from a business standpoint, I just think it's so critical that you have your board of directors set up. You have your accounting guru. And if accounting is your weakness, I think that's okay. But just have someone smarter than you, someone who accounting is their strength.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a genius at every aspect of the business.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the legal aspect, and we don't realize how important that is until something happens.
Absolutely.
And then we're scrambling around trying to find someone.
Yeah.
So that's really my closing thought, is to really focus on the team aspect. You don't have to be a lone ranger. You don't have to have all the answers. As long as you're connected to someone who has the answers, you can win.
That's right.
Yeah. So at some point you may be doing accounting for an accounting firm. What about that?
Yeah, we do that.
That's kind of scary if accounting firm need an accountant.
Providing additional support, staff support. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'd like to have you back with us again. We'd like to have our guests come back and
Yes.
stay connected to how your success is, and we know that you're going to be doing a lot more amazing things, and we'd love for you to come back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Would love to.
Yeah. And this is the first time that we've ever done this on video. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we're in uncharted territory for the 30-minute hour.
Yeah.
Not only can you hear us, but you can now see us. So maybe something we have to explore again.
Absolutely.
Maybe we need to look at having our video person back again.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought there.
Our resident video person.
Our video guru.
Who is our video guru today?
Who is our video guru today?
Gina, do you know our video guru?
I do. Our video guru today is Kenneth Young of Kenneth Young Photography.
Any affiliation with Gina
Young of Centric Business Solutions?
Absolutely. I trained him well. That is my son.
All right, all right. Family business continues.
Absolutely. Entrepreneurship in the family. It's in the blood.
Yeah, so we'd like to have Kenneth Young on at some point.
So what I hear, this is the rumor mill, that if you need like high level photography, if you need, I don't know, if you need a podcast, videotaped and put on social media, Kenneth Young is the guy to go to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I hear.
That's what I hear.
Absolutely. He can video. He's done music videos. He's done TV production. He's done a little bit of everything.
Fantastic.
I've done well. Thank you.
Well, this concludes this week's episode of the 30-Minute Hour.
Absolutely.
And until next week, have a great one.